Hi everyone, we've got another interview for TEFL Equity Advocates, and with me I've got Nik Peachey here. And thanks a lot, Nik, for agreeing to do this interview for us.
It's a pleasure.
Can you just very briefly maybe introduce yourself for those who don't know you, and tell us a little bit more about English Up as well?
Okay, so I'm Nik Peachey, and I've been working in English language education for over 20 years now. I initially started teaching in Cairo by doing a CELTA course, probably the usual sort of native speaker route, and got very interested in teaching and ended up teaching for the next 20 or so years, different places around the world. I've been involved with, as a project manager as well, with developing projects for education and teacher development, and worked as a consultant for the British Council and for a number of different sort of schools and organisations. And just over the last year, I've been working for an online school called English Up. At the moment, we're just based in Brazil. Well, not based in Brazil, but we're delivering lessons to students in Brazil. Over the next year, we hope to be becoming a bit more international. As an online school, we deliver all our lessons live using a platform called Adobe Connect. And so our sort of teachers teach mostly one-to-one, but some group, and using webcams like we're doing now, audio, and usually a presentation slide deck or something like that to do the teaching. Yeah.
Right, and the sort of the idea for this interview came up when you wrote a post on English Up blog entitled "Backing the Native Speaker Trend." It was a very sort of thought-provoking title, I thought. And can you tell us a little bit more why the title and why the article?
I think that possibly the title, probably because a lot of our competitors in the online learning market, especially the international online learning market, are kind of pushing the kind of native speaker element that, we can deliver you a native speaker who's connecting from another country kind of thing, and it makes access to native speakers a bit more possible for someone who's sort of sitting at home. But we've found over the last couple of years working with our students that actually most students are a lot more comfortable, particularly working online with someone who's what we call bilingual rather than sort of a non-native speaker. Often because they need sort of things like pedagogical support and technical support, and it really helps, to be able to communicate especially if the students are quite low level in their first language. And we've found that what we call our bilingual teachers are much more popular than our native speaker teachers.
That's interesting, because I think most recruiters that will claim that all students, or at least the majority of students, prefer native speakers. Have you seen that sort of demand in your career? Or?
I've seen that sort of demand, in various places in my career. And we do experience that within English Up as well. We get students coming wanting native speaker teachers, and pretty soon a lot of them change their minds and actually go for someone who's bilingual and sort of who can help them a bit more in a wider range of areas, I guess. But in the case of our school, our students can choose which teachers they have for each lesson on a kind of lesson-by-lesson basis. So we get some who kind of alternate between the two, or actually shop around and choose a few different teachers so they get a good variety.
So it would seem that sort of having a mix of native, non-native speakers, bilinguals, might be the best choice for a school, right?
Yeah, for us that works very well, and for our students it seems to work very well. Although they can have the same teacher every time if they want to, and some do, because they find someone who they feel comfortable with. There are others that have come back to us and said, we really like to be able to change between a few and get not just different accents, but different teaching styles as well, and different people who have different interests, So that variety for us is great, and that's a great part of our mix, I think.
And in your post, you wrote that teaching a language isn't just about your ability to speak it, that there are lots of other factors that make teachers successful. What sort of factors do you look for when you hire teachers?
When we're hiring teachers, I mean, one of the key factors we look for is somebody who can actually engage in this medium, because a lot of teachers don't feel very comfortable in front of a webcam or a microphone, even though they stand up in front of 16, 20 students every day. So that ability to engage with students through the webcam and sort of project their personality, I think, is very important. Of course, we're looking for the language level as well, and we do. We sort of ask for teachers to have some sort of, proof of language level, but we also, most of our teachers who apply to us, we ask them to do video tasks. So they send us a short video task, and we can usually assess their language level through that, as well as their kind of teaching ability and their ability to engage through the camera. So, those things are important. I mean, it's also important that they're able to sort of convey meaning and communicate understanding of different language items in a very kind of concise way, and use the camera to do that. And that's quite important for us too. So we're looking for sort of a mix of sort of personality projection and sort of pedagogical skills.
So where are your teachers mostly from?
Most of them are from Brazil. And at the moment, at least, although we have some from over Europe and a few from North America. And, the nice distinction about, using bilingual instead of native and non-native speakers is we have some bilingual teachers who are also native speakers of English, that been in Brazil quite a long time, and they're fluent in Portuguese as well. So, it's nice to kind of define things in that way.
Yeah, I think the non-native speaker label as well has a lot of negative stigma to it.
Yeah, it seems strange to define people by what they aren't rather than what they are. I think we should be sort of defining teachers by what they are. And for me, the important things about within that would be experience, qualifications. Those are what really make teachers, and that ability to engage with students.
And obviously language proficiency would be important, and you said you're looking for proof of language level. What sort of level do you expect your quote-unquote non-native speakers to have?
We use the British Council's aptis test for teachers to assess level, and sort of that maps onto the Common European Framework. We're sort of looking for something around sort of in the C level, so sort of they would be approaching fluency. But that isn't always necessary. We have some teachers whose level may be a little bit lower than that, but who are kind of quite fluent and who show good teaching skills, and they're well able to cope with sort of lower level language learners and sort of convey meaning really well and engage with them. So you don't have to have perfect English to be an English teacher, I think. It helps, but it's not the defining quality.
Yeah, I think it's a very important point, because very often I think in ELT we've become so obsessed about either native speakers or native-like proficiency, whatever that means, and we tend to forget about all the other qualities that you've just mentioned. Obviously, you need a certain level of proficiency, right? But it's not the defining factor.
Yeah, and also, I mean, with English, the question is a native speaker where? There are native speakers in India, there are native speakers in Australia, New Zealand, Malaysia, Singapore, and all these people have a very different Englishes, but they're still native speakers. So.
Very true. Yeah.
Even within English, I go to the north of England in Manchester, and sometimes my English is difficult for them to understand, and vice versa. So
it is. I had some problems the first few days when I moved to York. It was a bit tricky to understand some people.
Yeah.
But just to sort of end the interview on a positive note, in English Up, you're sort of trying to buck the trend, as you said in the in the article about the native speaker trend. What advice would you give to other schools or recruiters? Because I think a lot of them think that the majority of students always prefer native speakers, so we have to hire native speakers only, but you seem to be doing something completely different in your school.
Mm-hmm. Advice. I mean, I think, for recruiters is to sort of be open-minded and recruit good teachers, understand what good teaching is about, and and recruit teachers who are good and able to project personality and engage with students. It's those things are far more important than sort of being a native speaker. That ability to sort of really engage and get involved with students and that kind of commitment to teaching as well. And I think that's, I mean, in a way, one of the kind of negative views of native speakers is that they're often people who are sort of backpacking and trying to make an extra bit of money. And, not all native speakers are like that either. There are some people who are really committed to teaching. I'm a native speaker and I've spent more than 20 years, working in English language teaching. So sort of look for people who have genuine commitment to the profession rather than people who are just sort of trying to make a buck or, until their acting career takes off or their, their performing career takes off.
Yeah, right. I think this kind of shows we have to see beyond the stereotypes of your native and non-native speakers, and perhaps the labels are unhelpful either. And perhaps
the labels are very unhelpful. It would be good to be able to get away from that kind of discriminatory labeling. Really.
But perhaps what you're suggesting, and I think Jennifer Jenkins had a similar idea with a monolingual English speaker, bilingual English speaker, or multilingual English speaker. I think that makes, because it gives the bilingual label gives you an asset, right? Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, and it is an asset. It's a big asset,
All right. Thanks a lot, Nick. It was lovely chatting to you.
Great. Thanks. Nice to talk to you too.